This is the Depth Mystic Community Podcast, Episode 8. A religion as straightforward as Christianity will say things like, I am the way, the truth, and the life. No one gets to the Father but through me. How, therefore, does Jungian psychology, which has 8 basic true answers, appeal to someone who's yearning to know just the one true answer? How does the simple psyche deal with this complex truth? What if God was an octopus? Every person's default modus operandi is that their type is the way, the truth, and the life. They don't have to have a religious conversion to think this way. People automatically think this way. They don't realize it, but they subconsciously adopt a lead function, and they use it without knowing that that's what they're doing. It's like a scientific discovery. Same way as if you take a prism and you hold it up to a light and it turns that light into a rainbow. You've discovered the nature of a beam of white light is that it's composed of all the colors of the rainbow. Now that you can see those colors, you can respond differently to each one. Mystical experience is about oneness. Most mystical experiences involve the dissolving of differences into a kind of unity. So, how do we get from oneness to 8? The first piece of terminology goes by a couple different names. We take the one and we divide it into 2. Carl Jung's description is the rational versus the irrational. Myers-Briggs later came up with terms judging and perceiving for these 2 things. Let's just utilize their terminology. The primordial oneness in its first division got divided into that type of consciousness which was perceiving and that type of consciousness which was judging. Now, each of perceiving and judging is divided into 2 opposite forms. The 2 types of perceiving have come to be known as sensing and intuition. And the 2 types of judging have come to be known as thinking and feeling. So, in a simple sense, we can say that people have 4 general functions that they use when they approach the world. And each of these functions gets divided into an inner and an outer version. So we have introverted sensation, intuition, thinking, and feeling, and extroverted sensation, intuition, thinking, and feeling. And that's how you get the 8 from the 1. Now, in the animal kingdom, what we generally see is that when it comes to dealing with the outer world, in all animals, they are using the perceiving functions, sensation and intuition. And when it comes to the inner world, they're using thinking and feeling. So imagine a dog or a squirrel hunting about, and it is using extroverted sensation and extroverted intuition to perceive the world. And is using introverted feeling and introverted thinking to react to it. Now, the miracle of the human being is that in the human world, there is also an inversion of these functions we live in a world of symbols. There's a world of interior sensation, kind of like a mythical dream world in which there are psychological entities that are to be perceived using the interior sensation and intuition functions. And there's an outer world of sociological entities relating to human organization that are the result of exterior judgments about the world. That's essentially what makes human beings special. We have interior perceiving functions and exterior judging functions, in addition to the 4 regular ones. And we do fully experience the world this way. Now, there's a couple things that are important to understand about the terminology that's being used. Firstly, the term feeling is rather ambiguous. And a better term, valuing, has been proposed. Because feeling seems a lot like sensation, but valuing is accurate. So it would be better if people thought of these functions as the thinking and the valuing function. Secondly, Myers and Briggs are known for their type indicator terminology, such as INTJ or ESFP. But this terminology can be misleading because the Myers-Briggs notation has a P or a J in it. But that P or a J is not an accurate indicator of whether you're leading with a perceiving or a judging function. It's become the popular system, but it is definitely misleading. If your type is I something something J, you're leading with an interior perceiving function. And if your type is I something something P, then you're leading with an interior judging function. And the Myers-Briggs notation doesn't acknowledge that. The reason for this switcheroo requires a little bit more knowledge of the Jungian type theory. You don't just have a primary function. Everybody also has a sequence of additional functions that makes up their total personality. And what Jung and others observed is that everybody's secondary function is limited to 2 options, while your first function can be any one of 8. Your secondary function has to be opposite, both in terms of introversion, extroversion, and also in terms of judging and perceiving. So, the Myers-Briggs system is misleading because it always assigns the J to whatever function you use for your extroverted primary or secondary function. Which means that if you're not extroverted in your primary function, then you'll be a J if you use a judging function for your secondary function. And you'll be a P if you use a perceiving function for your secondary function. So, basically half of the Myers-Briggs types, the ones which are introverted, are misleading. One thing about type theory is that it's very democratic. Unlike the profound mystical initiation that I underwent, everybody has a type. A depth mystical journey is actually an exploration away from one's original type into what's called your inferior function. The infernal, like Dante's Inferno, the depths. And so that's episode 8. Which I didn't want to let pass by without introducing the 8 Jungian psychological types.